And now I'd like to introduce Terry Nelson Carpenter, who had put this panel together originally for an LA meeting, an LA luncheon. It was so successful that we felt we needed to share it with all of you. And here she is to do it again.
Good afternoon. I guess I'll put my name tag up so I can remember who I am. We are so blessed to have such an amazing group of professionals on this dais. Before I introduce them, my name again, Terry Nelson Carpenter. I'm the Vice President of the AIMP, and I am President and CEO of Real Music Works. We are a film and television music publishing company with a specialization in international rights management. So, beginning with that, when we think about talking about music and the state of the industry, it really starts with the songwriter. And we are very blessed to have with us today Michelle Lewis, who is, yay. Michelle is the co-founder of Sona. So my first question to you, Michelle, is why Sona, why now?
Why Sona, why now? Actually, 3 years ago was why Sona. We started, songwriters are a little slower than maybe publishers are when it comes to figuring out what's going on with their royalties. So about 3 years ago, some friends of mine who are also songwriters and I started, sorry, you saying something? Oh, started investigating into our slowly declining royalty checks. We started looking into it, and we ended up in the office of one Dina LaPolt, who is a entertainment lawyer, attorney to the stars, who had been very active with advocating for her clients' rights. My writing partner and I ended up in her office. We marched in. She kind of looked us up and down, and I don't know if I can swear in this room. Is that okay? She looked us up and down. She said, "Where the fuck have you bitches been?" And that's a quote. I mean, I seriously, if you know Dina, you know I'm not lying. Basically, we were the first songwriters to walk into her office to ask what had been going on, what's going on with streaming royalties. And she proceeded to school us on consent decrees, over the outdated regulations in copyright law, songwriters. So it took a while. We're still kind of trying to. We're still like, wait, what? What? 1941? Why are we still dealing with 1941? After 2 hours in her office, our jaws were on the floor, and we were basically like, we have to tell our friends. We made it like a dare. Like, how many friends can we get in the room at one time to sort of find out what the bleep was going on? And we said, Dina asked us, how many friends can you get in the room? And we were like, I don't know, 100. And she's like, really? I was like, yeah. She's like, we're going to need a bigger boat. And so we got this like big studio, United Audio in Los Angeles. We invited 100 of our friends. 120 showed up. Dina sort of laid it out what was going on with the consent decrees at the time. This was 2015, so it was when we were dealing with trying to get the consent decree on ASCAP and BMI modified, and that activated our little community of songwriters in Los Angeles. We looked around and we saw there was no songwriter-specific organization that was doing this. There were some wonderful organizations in Nashville. There's Composers Society. There's lots of amazing ways to rally, but we didn't have one specifically for songwriters. So we started Sona, and 3 years later, we charge $25 to $100 annual membership fees, kind of whatever you can afford. 3 years of those, membership fees. Finally, and we have something to rally around. We have the Music Modernization Act. We have this legislation that's pending, and we got our songwriter butts to Washington, and we were able to lobby for the bill, and that's actually why Sona, why now. because we've grown from 100 to 600 in the last 3 years. We are mostly pop songwriters. We have a lot of composers, though. We are a lot of women. We're like 60% women. Our board is 70% women. Our attorney advisement is 100% women. We're a lot of ladies. We have maybe a different perspective on how to get her done. And we've been working our butts off, entirely volunteer. We don't take a penny of publisher money. That's not a diss. It's just like we want to be able to say no when we need to say no. There's a lot of overlap between what songwriters care about and what particularly independent publishers care about. But we want to be able to have some independence in this. Are we good? Okay. I was just trying to stall to get so I could play this video. It took us, like I said, 3 years of $25 membership fees adding up so that we didn't have to take any money from any outside sources to get us to 8 of us on our executive committee to Washington last March to walk the halls. And we have a little audio of it to show you.
Hello from the capital of the United States of America, Washington, D.C.
I'm never gonna walk away if the walls come down someday. All alone and you feel afraid. Be there when you call my name. You can always depend on me.
If you wanna be with me, baby, there's a price to pay. I'm a genie in a bottle, gotta rub me the right way. If you wanna be with me, I can make your wish come true. Gotta make a big impression, gotta like what you do. I'm a genie in a bottle, baby. I'm a tease, I'm a gun, when you hurt, when you suffer, what? Think you I've been up, you can say I'm not right, I'll be right here on it. Help me here.
This is a bill today that comes to the floor with overwhelming support. Not just on this floor, not just in the committee where it passed 32-0. It comes to this floor with an industry that for many times couldn't even decide that they wanted to talk to each other about things in their industry, came together with overwhelming support and says this is where we need to be. As I've said earlier, they come from many places. David Israelite with NMPA, Bart Herberson from National Songwriters Association International, Dina LaPote, Michelle Lewis, Kay Hanley from SONA, Beth Matthews from ASCAP, Mike O'Neill from... But Mr. Speaker, I want to end not with a bill. We'll talk about it. But what brought me to this point and brought me to this area and why this is so important today as we move forward for generations of others, I want to take you back in time, almost 40 plus years, to a state trooper's kid in North Georgia whose friends were books, whose friends were music, a radio, and songs that came through. It was in there that those songs, the lyrics, the music would take me to places far away from Northeast Georgia, let me travel the world long before I could even drive a car. When we talk about copyright and we talk about the creator's spirit, it is about the creator's spirit on what comes out of their heart, that comes out of their mind, that comes through their hands and out of their mouth and into the lives that touch everyone that we come a part of. This is about something bigger than ourselves, and my friend Hakeem and all the rest who have worked on this show that this place, when put properly forward, can touch the very soul of America. We have new ways of hearing that music nowadays, while on past a radio. And the digital companies needed a place where they could give music to others, but songwriters needed to be fairly compensated. And when I think of my friends who write music, Hakeem, we've talked to so many, as he's come together, it is about hopes. It is about dreams. It is about everything in this place. Any one of us in here would think of a song that can make us think of the first time we fell in love, the first time we had our heart broken, the first time we laid someone to rest, the first time we got that joyful noise of a new job or a new hope. So today, Mr. Speaker, we come carrying the dreams of those who have not even yet understood a song, of those who have not yet understood a melody. We carry those dreams into the future. And I want to thank everybody who has been a part of this, because today the song lives on, because it all begins with that emotion, with that heart, and with that melody. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
That's it.
There we go. Excellent. There's a saying that says, when life leaves you speechless, songs give you lyrics to find meaning. And I have to tell you, I think that was a beautiful example of everyone who believes that. And thank you, Michelle, for being such an amazing creator and a fighter for songwriter rights. And because we don't have a lot of time, I got to flip over to the other hat you wear on the ASCAP board and ask if you have any updates from ASCAP.
So my work with SONA ended up kind of getting me elected to the ASCAP board. I just came from our board meetings, and it's all about the MMA. We're trying to get it through in the Senate, and there's some probably work everyone in this room can do to make phone calls and push. And I'm basically singing from the same hymnal. Is that the thing? I'm Jewish, so I don't know. I'm singing from the right
Songbook.
Right. With SONA as I am with ASCAP, which is, we will get a raise. Songwriters will get a raise if this passes, and we need it. I am boots on the ground. I am in the thick of it. I am still writing songs as much as I can, and I have friends who have songs that are charting that have to still drive for Lyft. I mean, it's not, the back end sucks. So we got to fix it, and I know that this bill, particularly the 114 parts, the performance royalty stuff, will really help on our end, give us a raise. So ASCAP knows that. We have, the publishers and the songwriters are aligned on this, and I know BMI is as well. That's our tune right now.
So you're fighting for songwriter rights, but in the interim, you're also creating content.
Yes.
And you're also, I'm sure, dealing with wonderful publishers like your fellow Deus member there,
Yes.
Mary Jo Manella from Music Asset
Yes.
Management, and a former president of the AIMP, and we love her for that. Mary Jo, tell us, in today's music ecosystem, how have things changed from the point that you got into being a music publisher to where it is today?
Well, I have to say that it's full circle. I began my career, and I don't want to elaborate too long on the resume, but I began my career, I'm proud to say, 40 years ago, last month.
Yeah.
And it was when the 1976 copyright law went into effect. It took effect in 78, and the penny rate went up and escalated to the current 0.91 cents. So to see things go full circle throughout your career is really, and the groundbreaking work that SONA, the societies, leadership by David Israelite, and everyone in this room in some way or shape or form has brought the MMA, God willing, to the Senate vote in such an expeditious way is really gratifying to see all of us come together and really full circle in that the data management business and why we do what we do because of the songwriters, the composers, it's just groundbreaking. And so what I started the company, I'm the CEO and founder of Music Asset Management 12 years ago, after leaving 25 years of corporate, and I had offers to go inside another studio and other ways to continue to hopefully be effective for the rights that we manage. I saw the do-it-yourself world evolving, and it was as the industry was approaching 2008 and the greatest recession we experienced as a business, and really the bottom of the industry was about to happen in terms of the soundtrack business and the film business merging, and independent catalogs were being swooped up by several companies that are now become very majorly independent publishers, quote unquote. But I think that the rights and using all the tools that I had in the toolbox and help build another team, and building teams is what it's all about. I think the importance of knowing, and having the experience to share with those that didn't have the capabilities, or songwriters that really needed help explaining rights to them. We began consulting for media companies. We began to sign traditional writers to traditional administration deals and non-traditional deals, providing back office functions in the copyright, licensing, and royalty areas before white labeling was in vogue as a phrase, and customizing deals and serving as back offices for existing publishers that really wanted to just stay creative and did not want to deal with what might be termed as the minutia or the complexities of ensuring that their writers that they were signing were being compensated properly and licensed properly and efficiently. So we partnered with creative companies, music supervision firms that were building libraries, if you will. We signed, one of our first clients was a film and TV composer agency that we continued to work with 12 years later, as well as then joined forces with other companies such as Pulse Publishing Administration. We formed about 4 years ago when a very highly successful creative company, we formed the admin arm with them. And it's turned out to be a hugely successful endeavor for both parties, doing what we both do best. They create, we work with their writers, we make sure they're well managed, not just domestically, but around the world with savvy international partners. So that's
Do you believe the collaborations between the independent publishers is a theme that is definitely growing and something that we're going to see for the future?
I think, clearly, with valuations happening in such large scale now, whether it's at the mega media companies, whether it's Universal or Spotify, and valuations that are showing that the business has certainly come back. I'm cautiously optimistic, and seeing that then when you see the acquisitions and valuations, whether it's Round Hill buying, Carlin, Imacum, and so forth, and everyone now is seeing that, okay, there's catalogs and there's money to be made in catalog growth. We certainly have clients that are asking us to look at their catalogs and see if the valuation, is it ripe for time to sell? Independence will continue to spawn as a result of consolidation. The film business is consolidating in mega mergers as well. So you see then the independence, it's cyclical. If you do this enough and long enough, you do see that then it spawns new businesses, and we get to keep doing what we do, which is love of music and serving those.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what makes it work for you? What is your favorite part about being a music publisher today?
The favorite part, I guess maybe Thursday night when we watch at the Songwriters Hall of Fame celebrate the catalogs and the music, and I'm proud to serve on their board of directors and work on West Coast events to really help spread the word that songwriting is now finally getting credit in certain digital services, and there's still not enough credit given to the craft of songwriting. And what does music? My family still for decades has no idea what I actually do as a music publisher. And that's why I think, and calling companies rights management. That's why when I started Music Asset Management, people say, well, why not Manila Music Publishing? Or you have a name and a brand, but I just saw the evolution of what was happening with, it's not just promotion, it's not just collection, it's not just licensing, It's a greater understanding, and now we're clearly in the rights management and digital data management, which we've seen all throughout today.
And also that publishers are good friends with songwriters, and we work together to make music
Can't do it without.
that everyone can hear, right?
Starts with the song.
So new publishers coming up, what's your tips in the business for them?
Show up, I guess, would be the best. Show up, be present, network. The business is so much about relationships, whether you're building relationships in Congress, whether you're building relationships to help further your career, to learn and gain the experience, because that's what's really helped our company. And I have a great team. You know, my team is built with experience. I've been hiring, you know, veterans, and because of that experience, you only gain it by networking. So I think you really have to understand the craft, take the time, show up, and then utilize those relationships to build further endeavors.
And I think mentoring, you've been somebody that I've admired for years, so it's really wonderful to have professionals like yourself to help set a really
next
good
generation, that's what it's
foundation.
about.
Yeah, mutual admiration here. Coming over to our music societies, you know, one thing I just want to make a comment. You know, today I've been looking at the panel makeup, and it's either been all men or all women. But I think we have a few more women that have been speaking at this conference. Yay. And it's actually just very nice to see. I'll look forward to when we have both men and women on the same panel. But, you know, when I thought about this panel, I thought about who are the most qualified to give us the state of the music industry from the domestic perspective, and here you have the best of the best. Having said that, Allison, I think you have a little something that would be really wonderful for everyone to hear and for you to share.
I do, and if you would bear with me, it's kind of hard to follow these tremendous women, but I followed a wonderful woman by the name of Frances Preston.
Yeah!
Who passed away this week 6 years ago. And I always remember her this time of year because of the Songwriters Hall of Fame and what she brought to this industry, not just as a woman, but as a leader, and how she so loved songwriters and publishers and composers and everybody that crossed her path. But I'm going to read just a tidbit that was a quote from her obituary, pardon me for doing that, but it basically sets the stage for the reason we're all up here. It says, new technology should be exciting for the songwriter because it's a tremendous amount of exposure in so many different ways. Ms. Preston told the Associated Press in 2002. But it's been very frustrating because their rights are being diluted. That was a quote from Frances in 2002, which I shared with this terrific panel. And I appreciate you letting me read that because, you know, it still holds true, but it also shows that those of us up here, and I'm going to coin a new acronym for those of us who live in the world of acronyms, and that's WOBO, and that's working our butts off. Thank you, Michelle Lewis and Sona and Dina LaPolte and everybody else, because I'm here to tell you that's what we do every single day, and it's because of the love that we have and the passion that we have for the songwriters and the composers and the music publishers that we work with. Collaboration, wow, it is an amazing time of collaboration right now. We are working with our chief competitor, ASCAP. Could you ever believe that, on a joint database? I mean, we really are working well together on an initiative to benefit songwriters, composers, and music publishers, not just domestically, but internationally as well. Nobody ever thought that would have happened. We're also talking with CSAC, with GMR, as this particular project unfolds, and we're really excited about it. It's something that you wouldn't have seen, and it goes to transparency, the T word, as I like to call it. Everybody's about transparency. Those of you who saw the ICE presentation upstairs, or we've got representatives from AMRA, from Mint, from all over the world. Data is key. You have got to get those songs in. You have got to get those identifiers right. Sound Exchange, Richard giving his presentation on what they're doing. There's so many different initiatives, but I will say that I don't think that it's going to be one that's going to push out to the front. There will be multiple different initiatives that will work in collaboration with each other to then deliver back the royalties and get those royalty payments back up such that you will see what you used to see a long time ago and why Sona was born and why music publishers are doing what they're doing. And, you know, the one thing that I would say, and Terry said, can you talk about pearls of wisdom, because I'm a Southern girl. I didn't wear my pearls today. But I do think that education is key. And that's exactly what the people of Sona have done, what the songwriters organizations that she was mentioning, the NSAI in Nashville, the NMPA, the CSAC, BMI,
SCL.
ASCAP, SCL, all of us. Join your organizations. Get to know the people there. Mary Jo mentioned relationships. Build key relationships with the people in your circles. Know what's going on in Washington. Ann Sweeney is in the audience. Here's our representative. BMI is in Washington. She'd be happy to talk with you about things that are going on. But it really is all about that. It is learning as much as you can about the business that you're in, while at the same time keeping that passion that you have for the music. And don't ever let that die, because the minute you do, that's when you'll walk out this door.
Exactly, I love it. Did
Can
you
I
want to
just
say
add
something,
something?
Michelle?
Speaking to this spirit of collaboration, I've been an ASCAP member for 25 years, and since I started writing songs, and I'm on the board there now. But since starting the advocacy work that I've been doing, there's a call that happens every week. So I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this, but there's a music coalition call, and it really is a coalition. It's everybody who's been supportive of the bill, and on that call is NMPA, ASCAP, BMI, Sona, representatives who've been supportive of the bill, and hearing Ann Sweeney and Allison's voices on those calls, I can't tell you what amazing supporters they are of songwriters. Like, I hear that whenever they chime in on something, I'm just like, oh, thank God they're there. Like, you always bring up the right thing. You always have our backs, and it's not ASCAP, BMI, CSAC. I mean, they are competitors, but in the greater good for helping songwriters and getting the rate right. That's our hashtag, by the way, hashtag get the rate right. We are a serious team. And I can't tell you how comforted I am every time I hear your voice on the phone. It's so helpful, really. It's amazing.
That's awesome. You know, speaking about Washington, Allison, we got some really good news in December about the fractional licensing issue. I'd like to ask, are we sure we're done with this? It won't come back to bite us?
Let's just hope that's the case, because when the Department of Justice decided not to pursue that to the Supreme Court, we think that chapter in our life is now shut.
Yeah.
So that was good news. And again, education-wise, I'm not going to go into educating everybody about fractional licensing, because I'm still not sure I understand the whole damn thing. Yeah. However, that's not true, I do, but it is something that you should learn about as these things, again, come up in the press. They come up in talks, in boardrooms, and in groups that you all attend. Learn about it and know what's happening, because we did take a leap at BMI, and we actually sued the Department of Justice.
Yes, you did.
And we won. And we won again. And they did not move to the Supreme Court. So that stopped right there, Terry.
Right.
Everybody will hear tomorrow Mr. Del Rahim from the Department of Justice speak. A shameless plug for the NMPA annual meeting. Go to that. And he will talk about his views on consent. Well, I take that back. I don't know what he's going to talk about. But he might touch on consent decrees or something along those lines, because these are buzzwords that people are talking about. But learn what they are. Learn about the fact that ASCAP and BMI operate under consent decrees, and that is the code by which we live. We must behave in certain ways, and I see Loretta over there shaking her head. Loretta works with me and Antonella at BMI. We know all about the consent decrees, and that is how we operate. And when we went to the Department of Justice, ASCAP as well, to talking about music modernization. We want to modernize those decrees. And that was about 4 years ago. We took a little side turn there for a few years. We have not yet gone back to the DOJ, but we look forward to the engagement that we most likely will have coming up very soon to continue that dialogue with the new administration and Mr. Del Rahim at the Department of Justice.
Great, thank you. Next is our friend from CSAC, Kelly Turner. And, you know, CSAC is a for-profit company, so it's not under a consent decree. So given the fact that from where CSAC began to where it is now with a host of a few different companies that now make the whole company, can you just kind of give us an overview and tell us, you know, what's happening with CSAC and kind of mark the growth of the organization?
First of all, thank you very much for having me today. You know, I'm among people who have been in this industry for a very long time, and I am certainly much newer to this industry. I joined CSAC about 4 years ago, and I would say 4.5 years ago, I didn't really know anything about music publishing or what a PRO was, so there has been a tremendous amount to learn. We like to say that Pat Collins, who's here and did such an amazing job building CSAC, has forgotten more. We like to say that Pat has forgotten more about PROs than we might ever know about PROs. So, you know, it took a little while to get up to speed and sort of learn the business. I am a, you know, very passionate music fan. I love songwriters. I love the mission that we stand for. But when John, our CEO, and I joined CSAC, you know, we were a PRO that was for-profit, was not regulated by a consent decree, did not have to accept all members, were smaller, all of those things, you know, but we were a PRO, and since then we've really evolved. We have acquired the Harry Fox agency, so we've moved into mechanical licensing. We acquired a company called CCLI, which is in the Christian licensing space. And so we've really, when we bought HFA, you know, the business was, you know, it had some challenges and there were some things that we needed to do, but it had amazing relationships with, you know, the publishing community and a tremendous asset in the data that it had from servicing, you know, the publishing community for so long. And so we've been able to take that data, you know, invest a lot in that data and that asset and combining it with CSAC's data. We've been able to form the MINT joint venture, which is a pan-European digital licensing joint venture with Suisse, which is the Swiss Collecting Society, as I'm sure everybody knows. And so that's gotten off to a really great start. And, you know, we've been talking to a lot of people in this room, frankly, about partnering with the MINT joint venture. And so, you know, it's been an incredibly exciting time. John and I like to joke that I have a tendency to get bored easily, and this industry is certainly not boring. There's always something happening. There's always a fight to fight. There's always something going on. And so it's been really, really great to be part of such an exciting industry.
And MINT is not just pan-European, it's pan-territorial.
So,
correct?
You know, it started, and what we're actually executing today is more the pan-European digital licensing. The mission is certainly to be bigger than that, and we are starting to sort of morph in that direction, but sort of what we're doing today is the pan-European digital licensing. And
So-
someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
But the future plans are pan-territorial.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So given that you're, again, not under the consent decree and that you operate as a for-profit, you know, as a collecting, a CMO, what's your biggest challenge?
I mean, to me, not being under the consent decree and operating as a for-profit entity is, you know, a benefit. I think that, you know, the consent decrees do put pressure on license fees for all of us, frankly. I think, you know, it starts with ASCAP and BMI, who have to, you know, go to rate court judges and follow a very specific process and everything that they need to do, but that ends up, you know, sort of hurting rates for everybody. So we're able to negotiate in a free market, which we hope, you know, MMA will do for mechanicals, you know, which would be a great and for ASCAP and BMI, but today that's not the case for them like it is for us, and that sort of hurts everybody. So for us, it would be great if, you know, that standard was changed and the things that could be introduced by the MMA would help all of us in terms of, a rising tide lifting all boats. So that's our view.
Wonderful. And one last question.
Sure.
What do you like about what CSAC does? What's your favorite part of your job?
So, I lived in New York for a very long time. Not only did I not know what a PRO was, I'd never been to Nashville 4.5 years ago. I moved to Nashville 3 years ago, actually. So, I've really gotten to know the songwriters and the songwriter community. Everybody laughs at me. I have this terrible thing that I have literally the worst voice in the whole world, and I have a memory that knows words really well to songs, and so I know the words to every song and like to sing them and have a terrible voice. But it's been really, really great sort of getting to know the people who actually wrote the songs that I love. I love to go to the Bluebird and know every word and sing along quietly, of course. So it's just been really, really fun, because it's something I worked in the film industry and in TV and whatever. And, I love movies and I love TV shows, but I really am passionate about music. And as everyone said, just every time in my life I can think about what song represents that time, and so it's been really fun.
Great. And now those rights are in your hands for management.
And we can actually help the people who created the amazing works, so it's great.
Excellent. I think there's a common love of music theme happening here. So now, last but not least, our mighty Amelia Wang from the NMPA. So give us an update. We know that the MMA was introduced, and it has gone lightning speed through the Judiciary Committee, through the House of Representatives, now the Senate. So give us the update on what's happening on the Hill.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before I do that, I do want to mention really quickly that NMPA has been involved in a number of significant matters affecting the songwriting and publishing industry. We've had a big win at the CRB, where we achieved a 44% increase in the mechanical rates for digital streaming over the next 5 years, so that's great. We've had litigation successes with the Rhapsody and MediaNet for pending and unmatched, and of course ongoing P&U settlements with Spotify and YouTube. We also supported some of our publisher members in winning a summary judgment determination against Wolfgang's Vault for willful infringement, and that took 3 years of litigation, so that's another great win.
Yeah.
So we can go on in the legal department, but I'll stop there and to focus on the MMA, since clearly that's the topic of this panel today. I think by now most of you have heard a thing or two about the MMA. And for those mixed martial arts fans, you won't see a fight here, because we're actually, believe it or not, all together on the same side with agreement on this bill, and we're not battling each other for once, which is really refreshing. And I'm in lobbying meetings with DSPs, and we're all talking about the same bill, which is just kind of amazing. So at the most basic level, the MMA really just does two things. It modernizes music licensing for the digital age, and it fights for fair compensation for all music creators. MMA really represents the most sweeping reform in copyright law in 20 years. So the MMA basically combines what were separate bills into one. You have the original MMA, which I called MMA Skinny, but it basically was the bill that focused on helping songwriters and publishers by improving mechanical licensing for digital uses, so that songwriters and publishers are paid all royalties while providing digital services licensing certainty. It also reaffirms that songwriters and publishers are owed mechanical royalties from interactive streaming, and it ends any debate surrounding that question. And finally, as Allison mentioned, it makes reforms to ASCAP and BMI's rate court processes for setting performance royalties. You've got classics, which I won't get into a lot of the details on the other parts of the bill, but it just essentially extends federal copyright protection for pre-72 sound recordings. So legacy artists are paid for all digital uses and satellite radio plays. And then you've also got AIMP, which basically ensures that producers and sound engineers get paid. And lastly, the MMA ensures rate standard parity for all music rights, no matter the platform. So no longer will we have an outdated system of setting rates with different rates that basically undervalue your music and our music, and instead the MMA dictates that all rate standards will reflect today's market. So that's the bill. So as you can see, there's positive impacts for all major stakeholders in the ecosystem, and the amount of industry support is unprecedented. More than 50 organizations endorsing this bill. Many of you are in the room today. So what brought the digital services to the table? Well, really the reform of 115, Section 115, the way we would license mechanicals for digital streaming. This is by far the most dramatic change of the bill, and basically creates a brand new licensing system to license mechanical rights, a system that actually works for today's music licensing needs, replacing the current broken system stuck under a model of paper NOIs and licensing for physical product. The MMA creates a new entity run by publishers and songwriters that will issue and administer blanket licenses to digital services. And indie publishers actually have a key role in the oversight of this new entity's operations. You have a very strong voice on the board with the most number of board seats, as many as 7 out of 14, and NMPA is already working with AIMP and other publishers to seek qualified candidates for the collective's board. You and your writers will see huge improvements in how licensing mechanicals will take place with this new collective compared to what you have today. So, number one, you'll see more royalties. Today, digital services have filed more than 60 million NOIs with the Copyright Office for songs they don't or can't find the rightful owners of those songs. And they don't pay, so they essentially get a free license. Well, the MMA does away with this loophole, and basically, services can no longer serve NOIs for digital uses on the Copyright Office. Instead, they will file a notice of license to the collective, and you and your writers will recover millions of dollars in lost royalties and receive payments that are accurate and on time. You'll also get more transparency. There will be a public database and claiming process, since we're talking about transparency. Today, you have no transparent way of finding out your song usage and collecting royalties owed by digital services. Instead, you have this opaque bulk NOI system at the Copyright Office where you're expected to search through hundreds of thousands of files to find your songs. But with the MMA, the collective will provide a public centralized database and song usage information and a transparent process for claiming your songs and royalties. And the same transparent process will also be in place for unmatched royalties if there are left after a 3-year period. You also get audit rights. Today, you have no right to audit a digital service over usage and royalty payments. In fact, you really don't have clear insight into how services are searching and matching songs to copyright owners. The MMA empowers the collective to audit digital services to ensure accurate reporting and payment. And not only that, as copyright owners, you can audit the collective to ensure proper payment. Looks like wrap up. Okay. Well, quickly, you'll have to pay no commission. Obviously, right now you pay vendors to help you identify songs, to administer your licenses. The digital services are actually paying for the collective, so nothing comes out of your pocket, which is lovely. And then finally, you've got a better rate standard, which essentially, the way we see it, if songwriters and publishers have to be under a compulsory license, at the very least, your song should be valued to reflect a fair and free market. So the MMA ensures that's permanent. Just very quickly, status of MMA. You heard, passed out of House Judiciary Committee, 32-0, passed out of the House, 415-0, and we have to thank the tremendous efforts of obviously all of our coalition partners, but also Representatives Collins, Jeffries, Chairman Goodlatte, and Ranking Member Nadler for MMA's success out of the House. And now, of course, we're laser focused on the Senate. Senators Hatch, Alexander, Whitehouse introduced a companion bill on the Senate side, same name, MMA, and the same language as the House-passed bill. Last month, there was a music hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and it was really a love fest. Everybody praised the bill, and everybody really seemed to express support for the bill's success. MMA has 30 co-sponsors right now, and we're basically expecting markup to be at the end of June, and hopefully we'll anticipate floor action soon after that. Our goal is to get the bill passed out of Congress and signed into law before the end of the year. So it's a very tight time frame, so we're working really hard to try to get the bill passed under unanimous consent, which just essentially means that not a single senator can object to the bill. So as you can see, that's a pretty tall order, and we've got a lot of work ahead of us. So I'll end there, and if you guys have any questions, feel free.
That was great.
All right. Lightning speed.
Speed MMA. 2 minutes to live. Wow. Seriously, that's why the bill has gotten done so quickly.
Exactly right,
It's because of Amelia. And she does it in heels.
If only our legislators could be so succinct and quick, to the point, and laser focused.
I try.
I would like to say thank you to our panelists for being here today. We don't have time for questions. Thank you, everyone.